What is up, sickos? Welcome to UFC 227 recap. I'm Dan from Oregon here in the 541, and we're joined today with Esha Knows or Esha Chanel. How are you doing today, Esha? Isha, god damn it. Okay. Well, Isha was live. Isha was live there at UFC 227, and she works for sites like MMA Today and is kind enough to join us today. Heck yes. And oh my gosh, what an event. Sellout crowd there in LA. The night of the rematches. I think people were a little disappointed in the card looking at it top to bottom going into this, but this night did not disappoint whatsoever. So, Isha, what was the takeaway from the crowd there? Definitely. So what I know is Cub Swanson, he's got SoCal right there on his chest, and he purchased $26,000 worth of tickets, just sections upon sections, I would imagine, for his fans and friends and family to come there and show up. And that is definitely disappointing. I can't imagine that. Hey, one sec. One sec. We got no audio for you, so I gotta figure this shit out real quick. Hold on. Let's do this. Okay, why don't you go back and tell people about the big takeaway while I figure out how to get your audio on the other screen.
So the big takeaway, Cub Swanson, like, he's fighting in his hometown, like you said, he purchased a ton of tickets. So no one really expected him to lose. Especially didn't expect him to lose in that fashion for him to end up tapping. So I don't know, it was just kind of a sad night. And once that ended up happening, it just didn't, get any better from there as far as the crowd and the surprises. Um, but I mean, just going from the early prelims up to the prelims, I mean, there was still some really good fights and some takeaways from there. But honestly, once the main card happened, that's when the seats started filling up more. Like there was a moment where I was like, whoa, in the early prelims, obviously there wasn't as many people sitting in the seats. Um, but honestly, once the main card just started, all of a sudden, like I barely saw any empty seats. So um, that's when everyone knew like the party was getting started.
Hmm.
So it was just sad that, Cub had to end up losing. But the start of the whole main card with Santos and Holland, that was like an amazing fight. So that really kind of got everyone's feet wet a little bit. But yeah, I want to say Cub, that's when the crowd kind of turned around.
Mm, nice, nice. The You could definitely see that in the early prelims, and I don't know if it was because it was LA and these people are too Hollywood to show up from the very beginning, or if you got to take into account the Pacific Coast time. These fights start at like 3:30. I'm sure a lot of
Hmm.
these people don't want to spend 5, 6 hours of their day like all of us hardcore sickos do. But yeah, that place definitely packed in later on in the evening. And
Oh yeah.
why don't we talk about Kevin Holland, Thiago Santos real quick? Because the scrambles in this were
Fully.
nuts. You go and you
Yeah.
listen to Dana White in the post-fight press conference, and he's saying this Holland guy was just a talker, all on Dana White's Contender Series. We put him on the callback list. We didn't take him into the UFC, but we called everybody on that list when Thiago needed an opponent. No one said yes, and he said yes, and he's still talking here. Put on a hell of a show. And Dana White's like, all of the stars, all they wanted to know about was about this one guy. So, pretty crazy
And honest,
debut for him.
yeah, it was an amazing debut, and honestly, I was very impressed. There were moments where I was like, "Oh my gosh, this fight could end any moment." Those fights where it just keeps, it's literally just back and forth scrapping. You see them kind of stumble on their feet, but they're still trying to swing, but they're not connecting. So obviously their hearts are in it. But he just never gave up. And like, as far as Holland goes, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed that. And honestly, that did get the crowd pumping, like towards the, I want to say the third, like mid towards the last of the second round.
Hmm.
But damn, like just like you said, the scrambles were, man, it was fun. I think I just kept saying to people around the seats that I was sitting in, like, this is why I love MMA. Like, it kind of gave me like this whole Justin Gaethje vibe, because whenever Justin Gaethje fights, like he can just take a lot, as far as punches and anything that goes negative towards him, and then when the next round comes, he kind of just dominates. But I respect Holland in never giving up. So, but I mean, Santos definitely took the win. It was a very impressive win, but just Holland coming from the Contender Series, I was like, wow, like that show really does wonders and brings stars. So it was pretty cool to watch for sure.
Yeah, you don't, as you look at it on UFC site, you're like, all right, this guy's got a black and white image. He's not even from the UFC. He's from the Dana White Contender Series, and this is the quality of pay-per-view that we're getting, and
Yeah.
they over-deliver. Every time we,
Hmm.
we look at a card and it's crappy, minus Hamburg, it always over-delivers on us. So that was awesome there.
Exactly. And that's why it's like anything can happen at any moment. And I mean,
Hmm.
as far as we talk through the main card, we're definitely going to learn more of that definition of why we feel that way. So yeah, you're completely right. I was like, holy shit, I did not expect that at all. So
Right? And then, real quick, Santos comes out and says, I'm not going to be at 185 pounds that much longer anymore. So I don't know what these guys are doing. 185 and 205 are wide open. Although at the
yeah.
same time, I am all for guys cutting less weight. I'm all about fighter safety when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really depends on like what weight these fighters actually walk on a daily basis. So I mean, they could be fighting in one weight class, but then it's like, after the weigh-ins and you kind of refuel yourself, or even when you don't have a fight, what is your natural weight? So really, how much weight are these fighters cutting? Um, but I mean, I'm all about fighter safety too. So I mean, like the less you can, basically go down, the better in a sense for that. But yeah, I mean, if they want to switch weight classes, if they're dominating in something else and want to try something new, I don't mind that. But I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you're professional and you're making weight, not holding up anyone else's time, like who am I to say to not try a new weight class? So
Yeah,
as
and
long as you're healthy, though, health,
yes.
health.
Santos, maybe he can make a quick turnaround, though. I know Sao Paulo probably needs some more Brazilians that got some name value to it. It looks like they're not going to get Aldo since Glover and who else was announced in the main event there?
It was Glover and Jimmy Manawa as the main card. Which
That,
I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Manawa, just because he's a scrapper. He loves knocking people out. I mean, you can never leave those fighters out. It just makes for a very fun and entertaining fight. And just Glover, just being kind of the veteran he is in the UFC, it's just going to really prove that, can Jimmy Manawa really pull this off? And maybe he will, and that's kind of the fun about MMA, like I've been saying. But either way, it's going to be a good fight. I personally think it's a good main card, but I do feel they can fill up the Brazil card with some more Brazilians for sure, because I think the last Brazil card that we did have, I can't even remember the date. There was like literally a Brazilian for each fight um, on that card. Going against an opponent, so that was very cool. But yeah, I'm totally down for that fight for sure.
heck yes, heck yes. Well, why don't we transition back to the main event of the evening, the rematch of all rematches, at least when it comes to the hype. that was coming into this fight. TJ and Cody. I mean, you could go back to Team Alpha Male or just the feud in between them two. Holy smokes! TJ
Man.
Dillashaw comes out and gets it done in more emphatic fashion this time. Round number one, he takes him out, and kind of the same sequences too, when they're just sitting there in the pocket trading shots, and it was almost a la Carlos Condit, Dan Hardy, when they're just swinging freaking hooks, and who's gonna land first? TJ lands, and then has to go in for a crazy ground and pound finish.
Yeah.
I was
Oh
all for
my
that
God.
stoppage though, even though Cody's standing on his feet when the ref came in and called it quits. I thought it was a good stoppage.
It was definitely a good stoppage. I mean, honestly, this whole fight, I mean, I was all for the rematch. Did it happen super fast? Yes, it did. But was it worthy enough, in my opinion? Yes, it was. But it was honestly, it was a crazy night. I mean, when Cody Garbrandt came out, everybody was screaming in the audience. And then when TJ came out, he was getting booed. Basically, the area that I was in the suites, I was actually chilling with some of Garbrandt's really close friends and family. So, in a sense, it's like everyone in my suite randomly was Team No Love, which I was kind of going for Cody in this fight. I'm all about redemption fights and kind of people getting back, something that they lost, things like that. And as far as the rivalry, like you said, with Team Alpha Male, it's just no surprise. So my whole entire suite was Team Alpha Male. So, or as far as Cody, but when he lost, I didn't know he was gonna lose like that. I didn't know he was gonna lose in the first round. He kind of just came out swinging super fast. I mean, compared to his last fight that he did with TJ, it was definitely a back and forth thing. And like towards the end of the first round, he did knock TJ down. And I feel, in a sense, like TJ might have gotten saved by the bell. Like if there was a little bit more time, who knows? That fight could have just got stopped. But TJ said, he was still in that fight, but that's definitely questionable from some people. But then when the second round happened, Cody ended up losing in the same way that he did last night. It just wasn't as fast. So I don't really know what's going on in Cody's head right now, and I kind of feel a little bit bad about it. But just the morale from my suite of Team No Love, like when we were just hyping, like, yeah, he's about to come out, woo! And then when he lost, my whole suite was completely silent for 5 minutes. It was like, honestly, the craziest mood. People were like walking out the doors. When I went to go step out just to, see if I can, try to console someone, there's people that were kind of, showing some tears there, like in the hallway. Like it was honestly like a really real moment. And these are people that are with Cody every day. Like this is his family and friends. So it was honestly like a really crazy perspective of like, wow, like even though Cody goes out there, like this does affect people that are around him as well. So honestly, it was a very like real moment last night. So it was a little bit hard to take in, but at the end of the day, I mean, more props to TJ. Like he went out and did his thing just like he did in his last fight. So there's nothing negative I can really say about that. Like he put his all in that fight as well. So it is deserving. It's just sad when, you just see a fighter put in so much work and trying to get the belt that they've already had before, and it just doesn't work out, in the way that, people want it to. So that was an interesting parallel for me, kind of getting the inside of that. But at the end of the day, Cody's a tough guy. I have no doubt that he is going to come back and dominate. I just hope that, his motivation and things like that still stay on the same track and he doesn't get lost from this. Cause, the real rivalry between him and TJ is very real. It's just not any opponent. Like this is someone he trained with and has history with. So I just really hope mentally he can come back and, you know, just like he did with Thomas Almeida and just kind of shock the world with that, and then ended up becoming champion after Dominic Cruz. So I'm just really hoping for the best for him. But honestly, props to TJ. Whatever he does, if he wants to fight Henry Cejudo, if he wants to go after a second belt, like who knows? But I'm not going to be bitter. I'll be supportive. But it was a crazy win. I mean, the entire freaking Staples Center was literally, everyone was on their feet. Yeah, it was a crazy night. Emotionally, like exciting, like just every feeling you can think about
Wow.
happened.
I
Yeah.
I've never been that close to a situation with like fighters teams and whatnot, so that would definitely
Yeah.
be intense. I will say, watching Gaethje live, since you kind of brought him up,
Mhm.
I see how Gaethje, can walk away from a situation getting TKO'd by Alvarez and Poirier, just because he put in such a good showing. He showed out for all of his hometown crowd, all of his fans. No one
Yeah.
left Glendale thinking that like, oh, Gaethje's no good, and I'm disappointed I showed up tonight. They were all just like, wow, that fight was amazing. And I hope that Cody's fans aren't taken away from this. Like, damn, he just got KO'd quick in the first.
Right?
So it's kind of sad he didn't get to show something there. So what do you think of this though? Like the UFC, obviously Cody was one of their guys. He's got that undefeated record, or he did, coming into that
Mhm.
last fight. They love that. They pushed him. When you look at rematches though, the good money's on the guy who won the first time around. Almost every
Yeah.
time the good money's on him. How do you feel about them rushing him right back into an immediate rematch? Because Dominic Cruz is sitting on the waysides. Cody and Dom too. I mean, with that would be a good fight next, but that could have happened in the meantime as well. Give Cody,
Exactly.
some time to get that confidence back and maybe improve his skills.
Exactly. And I mean, I feel as far as the UFC, they're pretty notorious about, I don't know. I don't know if they choose favorites, and I'm not going to sit here and say that that's what they do, but obviously we can only go by what we have seen so far. And there have
Hmm.
been champions that have lost in a kind of, I don't know, like pretty much in a fashion that that they lost the fight. Like it wasn't even like, a very close fight for them to even get a rematch. But the UFC just kind of puts it out there anyways, for them to get an immediate rematch. And it doesn't always happen in the favor that they see it happening, which kind of just like sets the fighter back a little bit more. Sorry about that. Which kind of sets the fighter back a little bit more. So uh, I mean, given Cody's loss in the first fight, yeah, we thought, motivation time, like he was going through surgery, he was going through personal things. His wife was having a baby, so there's just a lot of changes that are going on in his life. And, we're all human, like we all go through things. So, I mean, for that, it's a little bit acceptable. And it's like, yeah, maybe he was going through these things, not using it as an excuse, but if they are going to make the rematch, I'm not mad about it. They have a reason to do the rematch. I mean, Cody got a knockdown that was super close, and then TJ ended up getting that TKO. So you kind of think like, okay, maybe, the second fight can go a little bit different. Should it have happened at the time frame? Maybe Cody could have taken. I'm all about like fighters losing and then kind of coming back and taking another fight and then going back after the belt. I'm not really a huge fan of immediate rematches unless it was a very close fight, like
Hmm.
5 rounds, close fight, decision, split decision or something like that. Um, or they just said something super fantastic and it just got, crossed off from the bell. So, do I feel that Cody should get this fight against TJ as far as a trilogy? I'm going to be honest, no. I mean, I would love to see him be champion again, but when you bring up Dominic Cruz, I mean, I feel he's ready to go. I enjoyed that fight a lot. Cody definitely had a lot of confidence in that fight, but he ended up getting the win. But we also know what Dominic Cruz does as well. But he's also on the top of the bantamweights too. So at some point, he's going to have to get a fight scheduled. And with Cody getting off of a loss and with Cruz, kind of taking his time because I know he was healing and things like that, a fight's going to be made and they have a history of fighting. So would I be mad about that fight? Absolutely not. I'm a huge fan of both. I think that would still be really fun. There's still a storyline there as well. And if TJ wants to go do something else, he's a champion now. Like, I feel
Hmm.
if you have the belt, you should have a little bit more say in the things like you want to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've seen it time to time, like Ronda Rousey, when she lost to Holly Holm, and then she, immediately fought Amanda Nunes. Well, she took some time, but they still had a fight for the belt. Joanna Jędrzejczyk when she lost to Rose twice with an immediate rematch. So I mean, I'm all about comeback fights. Like, just get your feet wet a little bit, and then prove if you're the best, if you claim that you're the best in the world, what's wrong with fighting this person also? If, like, you're gonna get the belt anyways, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I personally don't think there should be a trilogy fight anytime soon between TJ and Cody. I feel that should just be left behind, and I think Cody should just get back in there and just take TJ out of his head for a second and just get back to winning some fights in his division that isn't for the belt.
I agree. And even with a loss like this, Cody does not far he doesn't fall far down the rankings much at all. I mean, in my opinion,
Exactly.
you got like the four horsemen kind of right there at 135s. Marlon Moraes just jumps into the mix. Dominic Cruz, you say that TJ should have some say in what's going on. Those are the two names that I see right there. I know Marlon's coming off of way more wins, even though he lost the split decision to Sun Tzu, who's got a win over TJ. I don't really include his name though, just because how the UFC thinks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're TJ, who do you want to fight? Because I think honestly, I believe he thinks Dominic Cruz, he beat him the first time. He really wants that rematch back. Isaiah Moore in the chat already said that TJ is excellent in rematches. Like, you can't beat that guy, especially if he's going to get a second crack at you. I
Mm-hmm.
believe he's going to try to take the easier money, at least in his eyes. He'll take on the old Dominic Cruz, who's still running the desk, got a big name, compared to the kind of squeaky-voiced Marlon Moreira, who's been steamrolling through everybody pretty much in the
Yeah.
division. That guy's kind of scary, I would say.
Yeah, and it's really cool, like, kind of seeing silent horses that not a lot of people talk about when they're not in the limelight as much, but still moving up in the rankings because it's like, hey, remember me? Yeah, I can kick your ass too, you know.
Mhm.
So it would be pretty interesting. But I mean, honestly, super fights are kind of the word right now. I'm not against super fights. If you have the belt, if you want the money, and if it makes sense, why not have a super fight? So if TJ honestly, I mean, he shows that he dominated to some of the top of his division. So I'm not mad about if he wants to switch divisions. He already wanted to do that with DJ. He was like more than willing, even though he's never even fought in flyweight before. But he was all about it, and he was totally down to go down a division to do that fight. There was no second guessing with that. So I don't know. It's just it's kind of interesting. But I feel like I would love to see TJ kind of see how he does in a different division because we already kind of know what he does in this division as far as Dominic Cruz, and then we have Cody Garbrandt. Um, so, I mean, what more can we really see from this except for proper defending against other opponents that aren't Cody? Um, but yeah, I mean, fuck it, Henry Cejudo. Why not? Why not? Olympian TJ, why not? Let's
God
keep making
dang.
history. Yeah, I know, right? Did we ever think we would be saying these words? I don't know. That's not even a Demetrius Johnson. Jeez. I don't even think I'm over that yet. Man.
I know, and
What?
great transition. Let's talk about the co-main event here.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and TJ, as far as that goes, man, he does kind of hold all the cards. If you guys listen to what him and Dwayne Bane Ludwig say, what's it like getting the belt back? It's like getting your stolen bike back or some shit like that. Because he loses a split decision to Cruz on FS1.
Mm-hmm.
Super close fight. Everyone just loved the storyline of Cruz coming back from 4 years and can he get it done? And he did. And so, boom. But a lot of people gave that fight to TJ. Dom's leg was mangled at the end of that fight. And from there, he took on essentially the top three contenders in the division. He took on Rafael Sunsao, number one
Mm-hmm.
contender, beat him in the rematch. And then John Lineker, the hardest hitter at
Oh,
135,
yeah.
some people say. And then whoever he got after that, I can't remember off the top of my head. And so TJ really has just been cleaning out the division. So, man, real quick, Zombie Prophet, got to show you some love. Gifts by ZP, give him a follow. And he's just got Garbrandt here in the background. What happened? And essentially, that's the look that was on the faces of everyone in your box, I guess. That
Oh
right
my
there.
gosh. Like, I swear to God, man, like, whew, there are some real emotions. I was like, I should be crying right now. It was like literally giving people hugs. But it was crazy because literally in my suite, it was really a Cody moment. Like I was being shown pictures of, some of them holding Kai, which is his son. I was seeing pre-tattooed Cody Garbrandt going into his amateur fights. Just kind of seeing that element in life and just, I don't know, just hearing stories here and there. I was like, damn, Cody, like, hell yeah. Like I was just really in it. And then just to see that happen was just a complete like split 180. But just to see it in that fashion, like, it's sad. But at the end of the day, it's not about, losing and things like that. It's really about like how you come back and kind of dominate. I mean, we've even seen champions that have lost even one time and then come back and won every fight or just go on this insane long win streak. And I think that's what's really inspiring, what's really inspirational. So I just really hope there's no ego that goes into Cody's head just for the fact that it was TJ. I just kind of hope he takes it as it could have been any opponent that this could have happened to. So I just really hope he just doesn't lose that motivation, honestly, because he really is like a talent. And he's super young too. So I feel like his future in the UFC is honestly like just beginning. So I would just love to see him go out there. But now that we've just been talking about it, I really can't get the whole Dominic Cruz out of my head because I also miss Dominic Cruz fighting too. And I just really enjoyed that fight. So I would be down to see a rematch with that. And I'm pretty sure Dominic Cruz wants it. Like, why wouldn't he? And I don't think, Dominic Cruz should be fighting TJ right now. Like, once again, he should just kind of take a fight and then, have the end goal be the belt, but just kind of work yourself up a little bit. But yeah, that rematch, I'm all about redemption. Why not? I feel it brings the best hunger in fighters for sure. But I mean, also in the last fight when he did lose to TJ, as far as Cody, he was like walking down the hallway, kind of talking to himself, being like, I saw the face of, my wife and like things like that. And like he just didn't want to see that again. So there was just kind of a lot of pressure that was riding on him. He brought his whole crew here on that jet. So there was a lot of people who had eyes on Cody. It's kind of like the Cub Swanson thing. Yeah, he didn't buy, $26,000 worth of tickets, but there was still a lot of people in the audience who wanted to see this win. So yeah, I can only imagine what he feels right now. But as far as DJ, I mean, even Cody talked about if he won the belt, he might even fight DJ because he mentioned that even before the fight was even scheduled. But I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can really think about is just a rematch with Dominic Cruz. I just don't really know what the division is so tight in the top 5. So it really can go either way, but I feel TJ should just chill out for a second and really think about the next move because he is kind of on a good roll here. This is his second, or he won the belt. This is his first title defense. So, I mean, if he wants to keep it going in the division, sure, but if he wants to move, that's totally okay too. But it's just going to be interesting to see. The bantamweight is a fun division to watch.
Definitely.
But a lot rides on Cody and TJ and Cruz. That it's like literally a triple threat in that division.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know Marlon Moraes is his manager is Ali Abdelaziz, and Ariel Helwani's pretty much his hype man promoter or something. So who knows what will happen there. But on the same run, TJ Dillashaw, someone mentioned this. No one really pays attention to this fact, but TJ was on that stage trying to roll for that union in that Fighters Association. He was there with, those few people. TJ is managed by CAA, which, believe it or not, is the #1 rival to Endeavor. And if you guys think that doesn't mean anything, you're sadly mistaken. Why do you think GSP is just hanging out on the sidelines and Dana White's going to talk shit about him every chance he gets? It's not a coincidence there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with TJ as champion.
That's actually very interesting. I mean, I feel like the longer you defend belts and the longer your reign goes, the more you're susceptible to losing that belt. Like you have hungry people in the division and one wrong move against an opponent could lose that belt. And I feel the UFC is very careful with that in the fights that they end up making. Yeah, they want ticket buys. Yeah, they want, actually, I don't know if they want storylines as much because there have been a few where I'm like, damn, just make this fight. It would be so good. And then they just kind of don't. But I feel like sometimes the UFC just kind of holds people back and just stay over here real quick. Just, we're bringing all the fights. You'll see what's going down in the octagon. Just have other people fight. And like once we, want to put you in somewhere, then that's what we're going to do. I mean, GSP and Bisbing. I mean, come on. So there's a lot of kind of examples of that. But I mean, the UFC should be careful with TJ. TJ is he's a dominant fighter. He used to be a former champion, so there's no surprise that he shouldn't even have the belt anyways. But I think the UFC should, stop moving so fast and like really just think about how to excel the divisions and kind of progress. So it's kind of fair to everyone, in the division, especially the top five. Because sometimes it's like, I know the bantamweight division, there's moments when Ronda Rousey was in the picture and then she was out. And then the belt was literally every title defense, we had a new champion. And I don't even know for how long, like Miesha Tate, Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes. Like, I mean, we didn't see that belt in someone's hands, for that long. And yeah, that could be cool and exciting. But, when you think about someone like DJ who had, 12 successful title defenses, and then last night, look what happened.
Hmm.
You just honestly, you just never know. Like, I don't know really like what the fans want. Do they really want to see that, craziness, toughness between like a whole top five or even top 10? Because that's sometimes how the division is. You even have someone in the top 10 who can dominate, with the champion. I mean, we saw Cody Garbrandt against Thomas Almeida. Cody Garbrandt, people were like, who was that? And then everyone was looking at Thomas Almeida, and then he ended up knocking him out, and like, holy shit, like he wasn't even top five. Um, so honestly, anything could happen, but I just really hope the UFC just chills and just kind of for once like does the right thing instead of, kind of feeding us stuff that shouldn't even be happening. So,
We'll just say Woodley versus Till, and we'll move on right there.
oh my god.
Speaking of
Yeah.
people that can spice up the division, we'll see what happens. Henry Cejudo, and the first GIF I got here. This is crazy. I never saw this happen in a million years. Henry comes out, gets this phantom leg after a few like calf kicks, maybe kicks right underneath the knee on your nerve, and looks like Michael Chandler versus Brett Primus. And it looked like this fight was going to be done in round number one. It looked like maybe his ankle. I don't know. I thought DJ
Hmm.
was gonna get a go in there and get the kill somehow. And so from the very beginning of this fight, this one was crazy to say the least.
Yeah, and DJ was also throwing those leg kicks, and Henry didn't like any of that. I wouldn't say he was stumbling him, but he definitely made him skip a step a little bit. So I was like, yeah, DJ, let's go. Like, just more leg kicks. But I don't know, man. Henry Cejudo had an answer for everything, and there was also beautiful scrambles that they were doing on the ground. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, definitely, obviously, DJ was champion for a reason for so long, but you can never deny Henry Cejudo and his resume. Like, you really just can't. Like, he's an Olympian. No one can claim that. And didn't he make history as being like the first Olympian to be a flyweight champion, I think. So that's kind of a lot uh that he can kind of claim and praise, but it was just fun. And DJ's always known for good scrambles. I mean, this is a completely different fight that, from what they first had. But then Cejudo was saying, a lot can happen when, a fighter goes through a loss and then, they kind of just go on their own path of, how can I just get over this mentally? How can I get better? How can I actually go back and win the belt if he did get that rematch? And he said 2 years later, like something happens to a fighter when they train martial arts for an extra 2 years. Like you might not be the same fighter you were before. And I'm pretty sure that's true. And he absolutely showed that last night. So there's no deny in what he did. And once again, like that was completely earned. It was just crazy because we're just used to seeing DJ's hand get raised every time. So this was just a change, but that's why the sport is so beautiful, because anything can happen at any time. So, but whatever they're going to do with Cejudo, I have no idea. So that's the interesting part. Because he's not like, he doesn't really talk bad about anyone. So I've never like seen him in the octagon and be like, yeah, I'm gonna whip that guy, or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I'm Henry Cejudo. I'm totally calm. I love to travel, but I'm also like really badass too. And he's just quiet. He's kind of like a flyweight Damian Maya. Like he's just too nice. So it's gonna be fun to see, But I mean, the call out if he wants to fight TJ, sure, sure. Like, how cool is that? He's just never been in that position, so it's exciting. And honestly, the flyweight division isn't like the most favorite division, and I don't really know why. But at the end of the day, it really did kind of bring up some historical excitement to the division. So I really hope this kind of puts more fans' eyes on the division and kind of follows more of these fighters, because there is extreme talent there, and I think last night proved that for sure. Going against Mighty Mouse, I mean, come on.
I don't know. I hope the UFC keeps it just because they got ESPN Plus and they got a lot of content that they need to put out. But it almost went like DEFCON 4 scenario. As soon as Henry wins, takes out the champ, and says, I'm going to 135. It's like, whoa, buddy, whoa. So we're just. Yeah, that's what I thought might happen if TJ goes down. TJ goes down, beats DJ, and then goes right back up to 135. Okay, what did you just do to the division? It turns out that's what Henry Cejudo did to the division just now. I guess it's a split decision victory here, though. So a lot of people going into that 5th round had it 2-2, and looking at that 5th, I haven't seen a lot of arguments against giving round 5 to Henry Cejudo. So there's somewhat of a case to give it to DJ. A lot of people are saying if you hold someone down for 3 minutes, but you get quote-unquote pieced up the rest of the time, should you actually win? And so how do you feel on that side of the fence? Were you okay with the decision there?
I mean, I was okay with the decision. I mean, like I said before, it's just we've never seen that before. I mean, I know the last round was a little bit of a toss-up. But honestly, I mean, we've seen many fights where you kind of hold them down. I mean, it's all a game plan, right? I mean, if you're at the 5th round, it's a win or lose situation. I mean, maybe it will go in your head like, shit, like I need to do what I can to win the fight. Like it can't even be tactical at this point. Like, so if you do have to hold them down and then piece them up in the last few, in the last minute or two, I can't hate on that, man. Like you're trying to win the belt, you know what I mean? It really just goes with the game plan. I mean, did this even predict that it was going to go all 5 rounds? Some people said, either one or the other was going to get a finish or someone was going to knock someone out. So even to see it last 5 rounds, but I feel like, the last 5 or the last round of a champion match, like you have to do what you can to win the fight. Like there's nothing else going about it. Like you have so much riding on your shoulders. So whatever he had to do, he had to do. So I can't hate on that at all. I mean, and he did it, and the judges favored in that. So what can you do,
What I hope they do is they keep Henry away from the tacos and the burritos. He does a rematch with DJ. But going back to what you were just saying with the scoring and everything, I totally agree. It all comes down to that round 5, and you guys are going at it. And if anyone wins any sequence there, that's a battle won. And if we're doing 10-9 scoring system, I see the arguments out there. If we're talking pride rules on who I think's gonna win to the death, I'm pretty sure Henry had it that night. He was looking
exactly
great, man. And
exactly.
I definitely want a rematch out of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I know DJ needs time to heal, so great. Henry, I hope you're still champion or you haven't lost when he comes back, so it can be a fantastic scrap. But, man, someone said in the chat also, Henry looked 10 pounds bigger than DJ in there, and I tend to agree with that. I don't think Henry is going to be outsized at all if he goes and faces someone like TJ at 135s.
Yeah, and he's a little bit shorter. He's just very fast. And like that's what I love about the flyweights, honestly. It's just their speed, and that's pretty much like what they're known for. Like there's never any moment where there's nothing happening. So there's either always a scramble or it's just back and forth on their feet. So that's what makes the fight so exciting. I mean, if he is a little bit bigger now that I see kind of a replay a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, he did say like before the weight cuts, like or not the weight cuts, but for the weigh-ins, like he was a little bit heavier. So it's probably like bare minimum when he did lose the weight in order to become on weight for the fight. But then again, who knows? Like that's what I was kind of mentioning before. Like who knows how much they fuel up after the weigh-ins? It's kind of like what you were saying, like the whole Darren Till and Tyron Woodley. Like Tyron Woodley is kind of a short dude, but he's just very stocky, and Darren Till just happens to be a little bit tall, and stocky is a little bit big for the division. But at the end of the day, I just feel like we've seen it. I mean, Daniel Cormier versus Gustafsson, like it doesn't matter. The size is really just kind of goes from the skill. But then again, like story told, if he does end up moving a weight class, if TJ doesn't want to come down to towards a flyweight, I think Henry Cejudo can kind of show praise in the bantamweight division too. That would just be interesting to see. But as you mentioned, the rematch with him and TJ, as far as a trilogy fight, I think I would be a little bit more interested in seeing that than a rematch with TJ and Cody, because this was close. It was 5 rounds. So I feel a little bit more can come out of it than someone just losing in that fashion in the first round.
Holy
So I
shit.
could definitely see down the line.
You know what this is? This is, I just realized this. This is exactly like Connor and Nate. Nate
Oh my
won
gosh.
by emphatic fashion in the very first fight, round number 2, or I guess DJ won round number 1, but
Hmm.
it took him out, and then the other guy comes in here and wins via split decision, and yet well, they'll probably try and push Henry Cejudo right along like DJ was never there. I don't know.
Oh
That's
my god.
pretty
Well,
crazy.
the whole Connor Nate thing. It's probably all of this is happening with Nate coming back and him fighting Dustin Poirier. It's probably a good setup for a trilogy fight between Nate and Connor that's been talked about for how many I don't want to say years, but it freaking feels like years because Jesus. But with Connor now back in the picture, with Nate back in the picture, if they both win their fights, like who knows what's going to happen? Even if they both lose their fights, like who knows what's going to happen? I just feel like there's such UFC stars, like there's so much potential in any direction possible. But I think the Khabib fight obviously is amazing. I mean, if I had to think about it, it should be happening in Russia, but there's things going on with the TV deals where they can't show pay-per-views and things like that. So unfortunately, it does have to be a fight night. But now that we have the fight finally on October 6th, and then Nate, just happens to be in the picture as well, like who knows what's going to happen, but it's still that whole thought process of UFC brewing that there could still be a potential trilogy fight between Nate and Connor. And there's, speculation about, still if, Nate Diaz actually won the second fight versus Connor actually winning. I mean, I'm probably going to get a lot of stuff for this after, but I might kind of be in Nate Diaz's favor about that second fight. I was actually very surprised, but, talking to any McGregor fan, it doesn't make it as easy. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, there has to be a trilogy fight. I mean, both of the fighters have stated numerous times that is the fight to make. McGregor knows that is the biggest fight to make. Is it going to be, as far as the money grabber goes? I think it's Nate. Khabib is going to be good. Obviously, it's in Vegas. It's a good time. Obviously, that's going to do well because he is making a return. But deep down, I know the MMA fans want a trilogy fight between Nate and Connor. I just feel there's a ton of unanswered questions that are left in the realm that need to be answered. So we'll see. But that's kind of what I'm banking on. But either way, I'm down for Nate Diaz fighting Dustin Poirier. That was very exciting, even though he showed up late to the press conference. But what's new? And then Connor kind of doing his thing and keeping secret, but staying in, relevant in the media. So thank goodness that's over, where we don't have to think about that anymore, and we have some dates so we can kind of move forward. But either way, trilogy fight, I'm 100% down for that with Nate. Honestly, it has to happen. Like I need to see it. Like they've both been out. I need to see it.
It's just that rematch has so many casuals that want to watch it. You got Shannon Sharp out there dropping knowledge on Skip Bayless. Like, nah, man, He hit him with them dangs. That's how he dropped
Oh
him and
my
finished him. He's like,
God.
no Skip or no Shannon. And it's called sumo wrestling, brother. Like when
That was
the, only a
embarrassing.
Nate and Connor fight is gonna do that. But I think people are underestimating Habib's celebrity, how big Habib is. There's a big argument to be made on who's really the draw. Was it Cyborg and Habib when they did a really fantastic pay per view together? I don't have an answer to that question. I think they're both a draw. But Habib is crazy in Russia. People
Oh
really have
yeah.
no idea how big he is over there. And I
Oh
know they're
yeah.
not
It
buying
was
pay per
yeah.
views, but that's not everything. Becoming a
See, and I
global
completely
icon.
agree.
But
No, and
man,
I was going to say I completely agree with that because there was because the whole lead up to him fighting Tony Ferguson, they were doing like the UFC countdowns and things like that. But he was like basically talking about how he is such a celebrity in Russia, and like they went back to Russia and he's kind of like walking around and people are just literally praising him pretty much how we praise Connor out here. It's just it's completely next level. So I can only imagine if that fight was actually happening in Russia. I mean, the numbers immediately was, skyrocket through the roof. But, say if they're having it in Vegas, it's still a really good fight, given, Khabib and basically, how he's still undefeated. And he's just been making, or basically just in his fights, he's just been having very dominant wins. Like he's making people look like amateurs. Like that fight with Barboza, like, what? like like we're so used to Barboza like throwing those leg kicks and kind of just being super dominant on his feet, and like none of that was even happening. So it is exciting, but at the end of the day, people love the Diaz brothers, no matter
mm,
what. And I feel we need that right now. Like we need the celebrity in the UFC, especially after Ronda Rousey, everything happening with John Jones, and then I don't even want to mention Brock, but I'm just going to keep it real. Brock Lesnar wasn't in the picture as well. Connor was gone. So who's the real celebrity that's happening in the UFC? So they had the whole Brock and DC thing happen. Now they're bringing back Connor. Now they're bringing back Nate. I'm pretty sure they're going to announce John Jones soon once he figures out his whole thing. So UFC needs a superstar celebrity so they can promote right now. So I feel why not make this trilogy fight also? But I think they're brewing something 100% because there's no way like both of these fighters can be around at the same time. It's just a little crazy. But I totally agree with you. I feel like Khabib's celebrity is building, especially here in America. But we already know of Nate Diaz over here too. So I don't know. It can really go either way, but I'm just kind of secretly hoping the trilogy fight happens. So
I hate that they all know that almost no matter what happens, win, loss, for either guy, that trilogy fight, it's still big no matter what. And so there's like, oh,
mhm.
it's on the back burner, it's ready to go anytime we want it, and they're gonna wait until all the hype simmers down to a cool to where I don't know, it's just not gonna be as big. They just need to build this shit as a semifinal, a 4-man tournament. Call it
Oh
what it
my
really
gosh.
is, because if the UFC would just say tournament, 200,000 more buys right there, just because they haven't,
Yeah.
they hate that word, or they want to stick away from it. Meanwhile, every other organization is going tournament and they're getting all the ratings, and I don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
they're kind of asleep at the wheel over there at the UFC. Finally they got woke up though. It took them long enough. It's been like 18-20 months. Finally, I'm glad they woke up.
No, and I completely agree about the tournament too. I mean, just see what Bellator's doing. The heavyweight tournament, they're about to have a welterweight tournament, happening in September. Like that's really big. Like people want these things, and I don't really understand because it's like you said, all these other federations are doing it. Like all the answers are in their face. I just don't understand why they don't make these calls. But I mean, what they're making is still really good, but it could be better. I mean, there's complaints about, pay-per-view buys and things like that. So why not just fix it? Like there's all these fans that are screaming for these things. I don't understand like what's so difficult. And I'm pretty sure even the fighters in the UFC would be about it too, because it would be something new that they can experience. And I don't know. I just feel like all the answers are there, but sometimes with the UFC, it's just never they're never on the same page as the fans, and we're the ones that are spending the money. So I never really understand that at all, but um hopefully they do get on that train, because like you said, how exciting would that be? I mean, I know I would be there live, flying somewhere or buying tickets. Like, absolutely. It just sounds exciting because the talent is so good in these divisions. So, just adding the word tournament would just, kind of turn it all around for me.
Yeah, I mean, my dream case scenario is I feel like they're flying by the seat of their pants and they don't really care at all and they just want content. But I'm hoping they're like, no, we've got all this great shit planned. We just signed a new partnership with ESPN though, and so we're gonna wait until
Mm-hmm.
January and then we're gonna get nuts and shit's gonna get crazy. That's just me hoping as a UFC fan though. I hope that
Well,
they've got big shit in the
let's
horizon.
well, let's hope so because I feel like, given everything that happened last year and then to this year, I feel this year has been personally a kind of a segue for dark horses. It's a lot of fighters who were deserving of this and that, of title fights and things, or getting that top five fight that was more deserving, and they're actually getting that. So I always say 2018 has been the year of dark horses, just in my opinion. So I feel next year, like you said, with the TV deals and things like that, hopefully they end up going in a new direction for 2019 because there is a lot of stuff happening and there are a lot of federations that are kind of excelling a little bit more in the UFC. But the UFC, it just sucks because the talent is so amazing. So you kind of have these parallels of having amazing fighters that can make really good fights that I feel can sell even with storylines too. But the UFC is just, they're just holding back on something and I don't really know what it is. So I'm really hoping this TV deal kind of just puts, new fuel to the fire, and 2019 would be the year of transition, the year of innovation, where they start listening to their fans and, just kind of pushing forward with the times. Like, we just want to see more blood, damn it. Like, why can't you give that to me?
I feel like the hardcores they feel are just always there, so they're not here to please us. They're just here
Yeah.
to how do we get the other people to pay attention? How do we get those people? And yeah,
Oh,
we'll
easy
see where
answer.
this goes.
You bring back Conor McGregor. It's working, right? It's freaking working.
Yeah, I think Connor held him hostage pretty darn well. I don't know if he got a percentage of the company or a massive pay increase. It's looking like they gave him something because you look over the past year and it's like pay-per-view numbers are dwindling, but their quality isn't very high. All the people that are holding out for money, they don't have to pay them, so all the other guys get fights, and we get these dark horses as you call them. The Jeremy Stevenses that rise up through the FS1s and the Fox cards, and Kevin Iole writes stories about him how they're the next star until they face Jose Aldo, of course. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Wow.
it is kind of nice to see some guys come up, but in reality, MMA's always been how it's been. You have to be a star to really become a star, and there's
Hmm.
no other formula to it. That's why Nate's coming back to face Poirier, and I'm not gonna
Yeah.
complain about it. But man,
I'm not
MMA
complaining either, man.
MMA
I'm
history
freaking
today
stoked.
says major props to Demetrius Johnson, who had a historic reign as champion when Mighty Mouse won the title. Anderson Silva, John Jones, and GSP were UFC champions. Women's fighting didn't even exist in the UFC. Connor was on
Wow.
welfare. That's how long DJ was champion.
Oh my God.
And
Pretty sure he's like writing that in his journal right now. Like, just for the timelines. Holy crap, man. Is that all real? That's insane.
you gotta trust MMA history today. I haven't known them to
Yeah.
be wrong.
Amazing. Man, this sport is just, whew.
And listen to some of the reaction from that. Damon Martin. Here's the thing about super fights: they really have to mean something, or it loses all value. It has to be more than just champion versus champion. That's why I think TJ stays at 135s for Moraes or Cruz or Sunsao. Cejudo rematch DJ, and the division moves forward. So that's one take. Jack Slack up on here says after watching that, every round of TJ versus Cejudo 2 is making DJ versus Horiguchi even more compelling. And anyone who watched Ryzen 11
Mm.
will know what he's talking about there. How I heard DJ talk before this fight, I'm not going to say he sounded unhappy with where he was and what they were offering him. I think he went to the table to try and get a super fight with TJ, and he said, "Pay me 2 million or pay me what you pay CM Punk," whatever the hell he said. Apparently, the meeting took 5 minutes. They told him to f off, and you guys know what happens there. If if you guys told me that DJ's gonna fight out his contract and then go help out Matt Hume over at One Championship and then try and take out Horiguchi because he wants all them belts and then come back to the UFC, I wouldn't think you're crazy, man. Because DJ's that kind of guy.
Oh my gosh. I mean, he's such a game player, but at the end of the day, it's like the thing with the whole DJ and TJ thing. I mean, it was literally, I feel the reason why it like spiraled a little bit out of control is because that is when Cody had to go through his back surgery, so he wasn't able to defend the belt at the time frame that in a sense that TJ wanted. Yeah, given TJ is a former champion, but at the end of the day, DJ had the belt at the time, and I understand UFC is all about making money and trying to make fights and things like that, but the contract was already signed for him to fight Ray Borg. So in a sense, he didn't, I mean, and he actually explains this in an interview, like around when last year, around oh my gosh, UFC at Madison Square Garden. Like he did an interview, and he said it wasn't just because it was TJ. Like he would have turned down the fight for anyone. He said if the contracts weren't signed already with someone in his division where he did say he would take that fight, then he would have happily ended up going with the fight that was presented in front of him. But the fact that the contracts are signed, he basically said he wanted to be loyal to his division. But he also did say since TJ was a former champion, it didn't seem like a super fight. So he was like, until he gets a belt, then we can talk. And I feel like, yeah, the UFC does what the UFC does. They kind of threatened him. Well, not kind of. They actually got rid of the Seattle event where that's where DJ's from. So they ended up getting rid of that altogether. But then they threatened to get rid of the flyweight division in general, which, you know, that just seems crazy in itself. But then again, I just felt like at that moment, like DJ really stood his ground for his division. And it really just kind of shows what kind of champion he is. Yeah, he asked for money fights, but like he said, if the contract wasn't signed, then things could have been a little bit different. Then now that TJ had the belt and he won it against Cody, it, you know, then that fight made sense. But then now, given he just had this fight with Cejudo, I don't even know if any of that is happening anymore. So with TJ kind of, or not, sorry, with DJ kind of, you know, expecting it now, I don't know, a little bit, like maybe, you know, that whole train has been lost a little bit. But I feel at that time when people were saying, oh, DJ's scared, that's the reason why he's not taking the fight with TJ. And just in my opinion, I just felt that was completely false. And I feel like there should be some, you know, praise in what champions want to do. If you have the belt, you should have a little bit more say against someone who doesn't have a belt. So that's pretty much how I saw that whole situation. But then again, I have no idea if we're even going to see that fight anymore. But, you know, that's just my take of the whole drama between trying to get that super fight to even happen. And I kind of sided with DJ on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sad he's not champion. It's crazy.
Man, yeah. Cejudo, quit cutting so much goddamn weight, because the first thing, as soon as he won that belt, he got tacos in his head, and he's just like, 135s looks so good right now. But we will see what happened. Cody got stretched and got a rematch. If DJ doesn't get one, then this sport is fucked, says Synchronic on Twitter.
God.
So there's all types of reactions out there. And we kind of touched on the Cub versus Morikano fight, but this one here, Morikano barely lost to Brian Ortega. I'm pretty sure he was beating him up that whole fight. Besides that, though, this man, 13 wins, undefeated in the UFC besides that, and just taking out Calvin Cater out there, I think on that New York card or whatever. And that guy had a lot of hype behind him. He got it done. And now he comes and takes out the legend Cub Swanson after Cub Swanson goes and tests free agency and re-signs with the UFC. They're like, Cub, we'll pay you more money, bro, but you're going to fight all these killers.
Yeah.
And Cub said yes, said let's go, let's do the damn thing. And apparently he got some bonus because he said, hey guys, Win, lose, or draw, we're all going. We're all having a good time. 26,000 people there, or 26,000 in tickets.
Oh
And
my
Morikano
gosh.
got him round one, about 4 minutes
Yeah.
in.
I swear I made a post to post on MMA Today, like, oh, who do you have? And I swear I hit after like kind of filming the walkouts and stuff. And I swear to God, after I was able to post that, the fight was over. I literally looked up and I was like, what? What? How did that even happen? But I'm pretty sure either win or lose, his after party is going to be lit. He just has that many people in his corner no matter what. But I mean, that fight was completely dominant. It was, from what we've seen, it just only went one way. And I mean, the last, time we saw a cup fight was the Brian Ortega and the Artem fight, which, Brian Ortega was just incredibly dominant. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't, it was a little weird. Like, I mean, it did kind of praise the whole free agency thing and then re-signed. I don't really know what the UFC does have planned for him, but yeah, like you said, they're probably going to feed him killers. Um, it would just be nice to kind of see him win one fight as far as the morale goes. But yeah, at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, I mean, I don't even know what they're going to do with him after this, as far as the division and who he should fight next. So it's just going to be kind of interesting. Hopefully, he does end up staying on the main cards and doesn't like scoot down to the prelims or the early prelims. But we just don't know. But my heart does go out to him because he is a veteran in this sport. So whatever happens with him next, I'll definitely be watching no matter. Because it's Cub Swanson, man.
I would not be surprised to see the winner or loser of Yair versus Beat. They're like, here you go, here's Cub Swanson.
Woo! I would be like, peace. Like, what's
Man,
that good for the guy? Just disappears. But that fight, oh my gosh. Well, I can't even remember what card that. I think that's the
228.
Dallas card.
Yep, in
Okay, so the
Dallas.
UFC Dallas,
That was
September 8th.
the first fight that got announced for that card. Was that one?
Oh my gosh. They literally could be like second cousins. Like, I feel their fighting styles are completely the same. Yair Rodriguez, he kind of reminds me, I mean, when Uriah Hall like kind of first started, like he kind of talks about how he, learned fighting from video games like Tekken and things like that. Like he kind of fights like a video game character because he's kind of all over the place. I feel that's kind of how Yair fights as well. They're just very fancy with their moves, like a Uriah Hall mixed with Sean O'Malley or whatever. I don't know. They're kind of just all over the board doing jump kicks and things. But Zabit, that's his counter. And I think maybe the UFC was trying to make that fight for a hot second, given all the drama that was going on with Yair. But I'm glad he's, completely back in the reins, in good reins with the UFC. I honestly still don't really know exactly what happened with that. But it's going to be nice to see him back because, given what he did to BJ Penn, but then when he fought Frankie Edgar, I mean, then we were like, oh shit, like maybe we should slow down like for a hot second. But it was still really exciting. I love both of those fighters. I mean, Yair's been around for a little bit more, in my opinion, as far as from what I've seen. But either way, it should be really fun. And honestly, that whole Dallas card is like, whoa. Like, I feel every time I keep looking at it and a fight gets announced for it, I'm just like, holy shit. So I'm definitely going to end up going to Dallas. And I mean, Woodley and Till, I mean, come on. Like, come on. Valentina
No.
Shevchenko
They
versus
come
Miko
hard to
Montano.
Dallas.
Yeah,
Last time it was like Stipe and Joanna Young Jacek on the same card last time they were there, and now they're coming with powerful card there as well. Well,
very.
let's see. With 145s though, one thing I want to mention, there is some massive, massive dudes in that division that are cutting insane amounts of weight, and I don't know how you feel on this stance. I'm pretty sure everyone here that's listening knows how I feel. They need to make the 165 and 175 pound weight class because Till versus Woodley sounds much safer at 175s. Those guys both each have to cut 5 less pounds. That's great. 165s, there's just name after name with Kevin Lee, Colby Covington,
Mm-hmm.
GSP, and then anyone at 155s who feels like it's too much. Paul Felder, James Vick. There's Cowboy Cerrone, Masvidal. These guys don't have to fight those massive welterweights. And because down here at 145s, you got Renato Moicano, Brian Ortega, Max Holloway. These guys are huge. Zabit Magomed-Shapirov. These guys are gonna get older. They're gonna get thicker, and the more weight that they cut, it's gonna get super unsafe. Like you see Jose Aldo, who has been having or had unsafe weight cuts 5 years ago. Apparently, he figured it out, but he won't move up a division because he's not going to face the 195-pound guys that are fighting at 155. So, how do you feel on that division or
I
the
feel
possibility
like
of 165s?
yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm all about new divisions. I don't see why people are against having new divisions. I mean, the only negative that I can think about it is like, how would you fill up that division versus like the divisions you already have now? Like, if is it going to lack, is it basically going to lack the rankings in certain divisions? But I don't know. It's like hard. It's hard to think that way. But then again, on the flip side of that, when they came out with the 145 division for the women's featherweights, that shit was vacant, and they didn't really do anything with that division as far as getting new fighters. I mean, how long did it take for them to even get an ultimate fighter just to find recruitments for that? Like Bellator was all on that. They honestly ended up recruiting some of the top 145s that were on the world rankings, and they're doing quite well with their women's featherweights. So I kind of, once again, it's like that whole common conversation of the UFC just kind of, why aren't they doing these things when all the answers are in their face? The fighters are pleading for it. So it just, everything just took last minute. So even if we have these new weight classes, which it seemed very interesting because we did have a lot of fighters say if they did open up a 145 division, I would totally fight for that division, and they haven't been in that division. So, you know, it's a little bit scary. I'm all about, safe weight cutting and things like that, and like fighting for a division that you're closer to, that's healthy, where you're kind of not just, going out of the realms of like not making weight. But are they going to fill up that division? Are we actually going to get fights? So that, the idea is cool, but the ideal of the situation, are they really going to do anything about that to exceed that? Because we've already seen it where they haven't. You have a champion right now that's pleading for fights over day by day by day, and it's like they're not even listening to her. And Chris Cyborg, obviously, who I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly a give or take. The idea is cool, but what's the reality of the situation? No one can go against other weight classes because that's kind of nonsense to me. But it really depends on what the UFC is going to do with those weight classes, and if they're actually going to start recruiting for them, or taking away from other divisions. Like they need to have a plan before they come out with these divisions instead of opening it and like keeping it vacant. Like it's kind of embarrassing, actually.
Yo, real quick, I was just thinking about this. The California State Athletic Commission and Andy Foster at whatever event came out and said that we're going to release the weights of like the same day weights that we take for these guys. So we might actually figure out how much Henry Cejudo weighed yesterday. Just
Woo!
side note for everybody real quick. Man, 145s, I've always said, I think there's 13. The UFC, I think, has 14 weight classes total. That's not true. They have 13 weight classes in Cyborg's division. If Cyborg leaves, I don't know what's going to happen in 145s.
Man.
How the state of it is right now, really, I think women's 145s belongs on one promotion, and it would be excellent. If they were all over at Bellator, then it would be a pretty damn good division. They all need to be somewhere, Invicta, wherever,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all there is right now. That's just the state of things. I mean, there's a better chance of having Atom Weights come over to the UFC and being able to
Oh
fight
yeah.
30 chicks. That will be bad.
Oh
But
yeah. They're King of the Cage. Like
165s,
there's so many.
who is it?
Mm-hmm.
I forget who writes. I think it was the real young guy. He wrote an article for Bloody Elbow talking about 165s, and the best reason I've seen is there's 14 divisions. 30% of the roster is at 155 and 170. So when people talk about like, oh, is it going to take from the strength of it? Will we be able to make it? It's 100% they could do it. And because think of the holdup that there's always been there at like 155 and 170. It's been crazy. But I think these
Oh
people want
yeah.
us to hop back to the recap. That's what they're telling us in the chat.
Yeah. Definitely going off the cage there. But yeah.
What else did we have to talk about? So who? Thiago Santos. We talked about him and Kevin Holland. He ended up
Hmm.
winning that one, and he says he wants to go 205s. I don't have a gift for it because I don't know if there was anything too exciting. But JJ
Yeah.
Aldridge versus Poliana Viana. No one really knows these girls. I don't know if they exactly belonged to buy on a pay-per-view, but they definitely showed a pretty good performance. And JJ Aldridge took out I believe, the favorite Poliana Viana in that contest.
Yeah, and honestly, with that fight, it's actually a little bit crazy because I actually know JJ Aldrich from Invicta,
Hmm.
and she trains with Rose Namajunas in Colorado. So I actually knew a little bit about her before she ended up transitioning and over to the UFC. But her last fight, she was actually fighting on UFC Fight Pass, and then she ended up winning a decision or getting a decision win against her opponent. But this time they ended up, just streamlining and moving her up to the pay-per-view main card. So given not a lot of people knew about them, I actually didn't know too much about her opponent, which I kind of feel a little bit bad about given that it is on pay-per-view. But once again, that's kind of a common thing. Like, does UFC market these fights sometimes to actually get us to know these fighters? Yes, no, who knows? But as far as JJ Aldrich, I mean, once again, she's definitely a dark horse, like I kind of mentioned in 2018. She's kind of a silent killer that's just been moving up. So people might not know about her, but she's definitely kind of moving herself up, definitely on the cards and the rankings. So I feel she's deserving. Pay-per-view main event with or pay-per-view card without people knowing who she is, I don't know, but it's not the first time we've seen that from the UFC and seen a fighter actually dominate with that challenge. So hopefully people keep their eyes on her, but I don't think she's going to go away anytime soon. She's definitely a tough chick, and like I said before, she trains with the champion. So I mean, you can never go wrong with training with Rose Namajunas, I'm sure.
No, and let's talk about them building the divisions because I was live in Boise and I watched a tragedy happen, which was Darren Elkins and Volkanovski was not on the main card. I don't know how the hell that happened. And the worst one of it all was Jennifer Maia, the Invicta champion, took on Liz Carmouche
Oh,
on the Fight Pass prelims. And that's something that has way more notoriety on the division than something like this. So I'll just throw that out there. Like,
yes.
Liz Carmouche got an excellent victory there, and no one cares about it. She's
Mm-hmm.
top five in women's 125s right now. That
Yeah,
division
and
deserves a
oof,
whole nother
man.
tournament. You look at the top eight in there, and you're like, these might all be the best fighter in the division. You got like, what's her name? Um, Jessica
Like
I.
Rock,
Jessica I's like
yeah.
11-1 underneath bantamweight. She's got a crazy record at flyweight. Yeah. And then Liz Carmouche and plenty of people down there.
No, absolutely. And the thing, and yeah, I mean, thank goodness you brought that up because I mean, Jennifer Maia, if anyone watched Invicta, like, not even that long ago, I mean, she's a former flyweight champion. This girl is so dominant. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Liz Carmouche, I mean, we have the history. She's, one of the first fights that fought for UFC for women against
Yup.
Ronda Rousey, which I also thought was a very close fight. I'll say that right now. But, anyways, that should have absolutely gotten a little bit more recognition. I was actually very upset that it was on Fight Pass. I just felt like these people just don't even know who they're putting on the card, or even just taking the time to really understand where they're getting these fighters and how dominant they are. Given that, yeah, Jennifer Maia lost. I mean, I think she's still a big draw as far as the flyweight division. And the flyweight division is very exciting. I mean, believe it or not, like, even if we want to, admitted we have to owe a lot to the Ultimate Fighter because we really wouldn't know a handful of these fighters, especially who they are fighting for the UFC now. So I feel with the women's flyweights, I really ended up loving that season, and there have been a handful of fighters that I can literally mention right now on the back of my, on the back of my head that are well deserving to fight in this division. And I was actually very surprised at Jessica I, and I think she's a way better flyweight than she was as a bantam, or no, she fought as a strawweight. So I think she's definitely, finding her element there. We have Jessica Rose Clark, who I think is super dominant, who has wins against Paige Van Zant. You have Roxanne Modafferi, who, her last win was just completely dominant, and she has to feel happy about that. But she's definitely been around the MMA game for years. So there's a handful of people that can make really good fights. Now, Valentina Shevchenko, like we said, fighting Nico Montano. Even though Nico Montano doesn't have as much, TV time as we've noticed from Valentina, that's still going to make a really good fight for UFC Dallas. So I just hope like people just keep their eyes on the flyweight division. But this is what we need for the featherweight division too. So I don't know. The UFC just needs to get it together and just get everything right. Place where the people need to belong, and we can have a good show.
It'll work itself out real quick. The women that came down from 135s, they're figuring out their spot. And yeah, I guess I kept watching Tough. People hate on that show like crazy, but you hear the stories of the guys on there, and they're like 18 years old, 22 or whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was watching this when I was young," and I was like, "I'm gonna be on episode or season 25 of Tough, and that's how I'm gonna get in." So it's gonna be sad to see that go. I guess the contender series
Yeah.
will leave a spot there. But Sajara Eubanks, I never knew her, so I'm glad I watched that, and Nico Montano. And to find out
Mhm.
that Barb, who I thought was the number one gonna take the thing, didn't get all the way through, and Roxanne is it's just the ultimate. I don't want to call her journeywoman, but just someone who stuck to the game to
Yeah.
craft her skills and has shown nothing but improvement year after year after year, which is pretty nuts.
Absolutely. It's hard to hate on the girl,
Yeah.
honestly. She's a happy warrior, man.
But then back to the UFC 227. What a performance from Pedro Munoz. The guillotine machine morphed into a buzzsaw, rendering Brett the Pikey Johns, with a gruesome kicks to all levels, complementing with dissection with improved boxing. How the Welshman survived a full 15 minutes is a mystery, and a lot of people I saw were giving him like a 10-7 round against the Pikey out here. What did you think of this fight?
I'm always down for bangers that kind of, go all the way to the end. So, given, I don't know. Honestly, I just thought it was really exciting. It was kind of just a segue into the main card for me, but I'm always down for fights that kind of go in that dominant way, but for fighters to never give up, like we were just talking about. Um, for Santos. And I don't know. I really enjoyed the fight. Once again, I didn't take away too much from it personally, but I still enjoy the fights that kind of go the full 15 for sure.
Mm. Yeah, it was brutal. I think I checked out during this one for a little bit. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Trying to find an illegal stream, probably. I think that's what was happening. Which brings me to a quote or a tweet that I saw out here. Didn't see this one coming from Muay Thai chick. Actually streaming it and keeping $65 in my pocket felt great. Responding to Dave Doyle, when she said, "I totally get everyone's reason for not buying the pay-per-view, but UFC 227 was the first. If you skipped this one, you really missed out type of show in quite some time." And
Right?
so I
And that
get,
always happens, right?
yeah, I
Always
get
happens.
Dave's point, but then her point was even greater. Um, Real quick, if you had to give like a percentage, what percentage would you say illegally streams?
Oh, man. In this day and age, after
Yeah.
like Napster and LimeWire, come on, man. Um, Honestly, I would say like a good 70%,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm up there too. I'm up there.
you know, above average a little bit. I think so.
I've thought
We
60.
got some sneaky fans out there.
A lot of people are like, think about it. If 200,000 bought it, you don't think there's a million watching? And I was like, yeah, you got a good point there. And so maybe
Yeah.
it's as high as 80. Who knows? But the
Yeah,
pikey
man.
got taken out. Powerful stuff there by Pedro Munoz. What other highlights do we get here? And this is just in case you're wondering who's putting out all these tweets. Humberley on Twitter. Give him a follow.
Humberley. I like that name.
Humberley. I don't know. It's
It like rolls off the tongue a little bit. Humberley.
yeah. Not bad for a man once known as The Decision. Alex Perez beats the brakes off of Jose Shorty Torres, drowning the former
Oh
two-division Titan
man.
FC champ under a hailstorm of strikes. Perez rides an 8-fight win streak. If you guys missed this, imagine you're playing a video game and you're just like, this is how you win, pure offense, and you throw 22 strike combo. I don't exactly know. It was like each additional hit meant you got a multiplayer. That's what he was
Yeah.
doing here to
I
freaking.
completely agree. It's like playing Mortal Kombat. It's like you get the combos, and once someone breaks your combo, you're like, God damn it, you know?
Yeah.
But we didn't see any of that breakage during this fight. I don't even know why I didn't even bring up this fight, but holy shit, I remember this fight. Wow. Okay. I mean, everybody went crazy. I mean, those combinations for him landing on the ground like that was just so like whoa. Like I remember sending something to my friend and showing him about it, and he was just like, holy shit. um I love wins like that. It's dominant, that walk off and everything. I mean, well
Mm-hmm.
deserving. But then again, I know a lot of people that were going for Shorty in that fight. So there was just a lot of upsets for 2-7. Like things just didn't go in people's way of what they saw. But this fight, like, wow. I liked it. I like that.
Yeah, people were saying that this was Shorty's true debut to the UFC since he actually had a fight camp and all that. His last one, he was kind of getting pieced up, got that crazy Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard slam that knocked the opponent out, got on. What was crazy is that happened on Fight Pass, and so Fight Pass gives it to Sports Center and ESPN, and it got like 10,000 likes or something crazy. What I
Yeah.
thought, which is what I saw. And what I was hoping, I always hope that there's quick finishes during these cards, so people that get quick finishes on Fight Pass can get slotted in and actually get TV time. I'm not sure if that
Oh
happened
yeah.
here, but this is definitely Sports Center worthy to me. If you don't like a
Mhm.
22 punch combo that breaks through the guy's defense and drops him, then I don't know what you like. Fantastic stuff here.
Right? It's like, why do you even watch MMA? Damn it! No, this is honestly, this is just really good. And sometimes, honestly, there's been cards where, I mean, I always try because I go to a lot of live fights, so I really try like getting there right when the early prelims start. I love watching all the fights. Like I can't leave anyone out. And sometimes it's like you'll see people and there's like not a lot of people in the audience, but some of the best fights happen on UFC Fight Pass early prelims. Like it's kind of crazy. So especially when it's a pay-per-view card, like you can't really, I mean, even though they're not showing on pay-per-view, but given it's a pay-per-view card, you really just can't leave anyone out, in my opinion, as far as the early prelims, and the main card. But then again, there are fighters who I feel deserve certain spots, but still, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it.
Mm.
Um, but this is, point proven. This was a great dominant fight that no one really kind of expected to happen. So I don't know. This was a lot of fun. I was like, hell yeah. Like,
Yeah, this is one where you go away screaming at people. You tell me they can't finish down at flyweight? The little guys can't put on exciting fights? Just watch this. And then
yeah,
insert this one
exactly.
in there for them. Or I guess both the shorties fights. And, win or loss, this guy is an exciting contest. For some reason,
Hmm.
Mick Maynard hates him, so maybe that's why he was on the or the Fight Pass portion. Maybe they think, hey, we want to please our Titan fans who already have Fight Pass. I don't know, but fantastic stuff there.
Right? Hell yeah, man.
And I think we had a strawweight debut by Weili Zhang, who impressed
Yes.
everyone, taking out the UFC vet Danielle Taylor, who's grinded many of fighters in the UFC, gotten better in her
Hmm.
striking recently as well. And the Chinese fighter, who I think was 16-1 coming in here,
Mhm.
and she lost her first fight, so she had like 15 or 16 in a row, and she came out with just a striking clinic. I've seen her highlights with her elbows, and we got to see some of that um, on display here as well. And I like to see some influx in the straw weights, and it looks like they got a star to throw on that Shanghai card that they're planning later on this year.
Oh yeah, isn't that when is that supposed to be? I heard about that.
So
Mm.
during Ariel Hawani puts out, UFC will be in or not Shanghai, Beijing. They'll be in
Okay,
Beijing
Beijing.
on November 24th per John
Okay.
Anik on the broadcast.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, these type of fights, I mean, the strawweight division honestly is one of my favorite divisions. It's kind of like the flyweight division, but women. Um, but as far as just this division, it's kind of like there's a lot of talent. I feel like as far as you can't even just like say the top five. You have to say the top 10. I feel even number 10 is worthy of fighting, one of the top five. But Danielle Taylor, I've been following her career for kind of a while, and just in my brain, just from what I've seen from her, I was kind of going for her to win this fight. But I mean, you can never underestimate newcomers into the UFC. So even given their resume and everything like that, so I thought this was a solid fight. It showed a lot of skill for strawweights, and I really like that. I love when things can be showcased like that, where no one is hidden in this division. You know what I mean? As far as rankings, sometimes people don't even agree with rankings. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, this is a complete solid fight. I didn't think it was going to turn out the way it did, but once again, that just makes it for to be really exciting. But now that you do mention the Beijing card, I mean, if they need to start stacking it up, I think we do have kind of a future star if she keeps fighting like that. I was actually like very impressed, so I'm going to start following a little bit more into her career. And then just go from there. But yeah, I think November is a good turnaround time. It's, I'm like, what date is it? Just a couple of months down the line. Now we're starting to get into the fall. So
Mm.
I think that would be a good addition to the China card for sure.
Heck yeah, and I think I need to give a shout out here to Fight Matrix. I was checking out. It was
Ooh.
this is when Big Mac Mackenzie Dern got put into the rankings after coming in 7-8 pounds overweight,
Oh,
and
yeah.
everyone freaked out, including one of my favorites, Angela Overkill Hill, on Twitter. And so
Hmm.
she's like, "What the heck? I'm out of the rankings, and this girl's in, or whatever." And
Yeah.
I pulled up the top 5 respectable rankings in like Sherdog, Tapology, Fight Matrix, and USA Today. I was like, "You're ranked on all of these, okay? Don't
Yeah.
worry about that UFC bullshit." But I think it's Fight Matrix had Wile Zhang actually ranked because they use a point system or something
Oh.
like that. And yeah, so I heard about
Okay.
her. She's actually top 15 in their rankings. We'll see how she does though.
Interesting.
Might
Well, it's
have a
always fun to kind of follow someone's career when it's like this early on. But just even siding with Angela Hill, I mean, yeah, she fights what at UFC Lincoln, I think against Courtney Casey, if I'm not mistaken, because crap, who was she supposed to fight? She's
Alexis
there we
Grasso
go.
or whatever. Alexa Grasso.
Exactly. Which would definitely have been a great fight. I've always been a fan of Grace or Grasso because she trains with Irene Aldana, who actually I will say, if we're talking obviously about the 227 card, we did miss a very good women's fight against Irene Aldana and Betch Correa. When I went to the weigh-ins, I ended up running into Irene Aldana and I talked to her for a hot second and just kind of saying, I followed her career in Invicta. She's actually one of my top favorite fighters coming out from the Invicta into the UFC. She was actually very bummed out that she got taken off this card. And I feel like as far as UFC, like we've had replacements for fighters that have a shorter time span than when the fight got called off. So in my opinion, like I don't really understand why the UFC didn't find an opponent for her, even though there were fighters that were willing to kind of step in Betch's place to give her this fight. So that was kind of sad and disappointing, which is a little
Hmm.
bit crazy because when they handed out the itinerary, when I got to the Staples Center for the fights, Irene Aldana and Betchkowia's name is on there still.
The
So
Betch
people,
effect.
I literally have it like right here. So the fight's still there. So when I was in my suite, we were just like, oh, what fight's next? Some of the people still thought that she was fighting on the card, and I kind of had to break it down to them, and they were just like, oh my God, no, are you serious? So people were actually very disappointed as well as far as fans. So I really hope that the UFC gets it together because she's more than worthy to be put on a card against someone good. And I really did think that Betch was a good opponent for her, but then she ended up having an eye injury. But they were actually scheduled to fight, I want to say January, but around that time they had to cancel the fight for the same exact reason because Betch is dealing with this, eye surgery thing. So that's kind of disappointing. But at the end of the day, I just really hope the UFC gets it together and gets this girl fight because her last fight was a complete dominant win and how she, fights from Invicta. She had kind of a rough start, with her transition into the UFC, but her last fight was the fighter that I know that she can fight. She's such a striker. And the same thing with Graco too. So they, kind of train together. So I was actually also upset that Graco isn't fighting Angela Hill. But with Courtney Casey, I'm still down for that fight. So either way, people were disappointed that Irene wasn't on this card or like seeing it live. So I'm still sad. But there's so many cards that I feel they can put her on too. So we'll see. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully the UFC does it right in this.
We shall see. I don't know. I thought that the UFC had a policy of only two women's fights per card, but you go to UFC 228 and there's three women's fights on the main portion of the card. So the UFC
Oh
is
wow.
showing love. Who knows what will happen
Hey.
in the future? Maybe there's becoming more slots, but
Well, hey
reading.
man, I'm still down for an all women's tournament. I'm still down for it. I'm gonna preach it literally every day. But how freaking cool would that be? Or not even a tournament, just an all women's fight card.
They're doing it in WWE. I bet
That's
you
what I'm saying, man.
Dana White's got his fingers out there. He's like, "How's the pulse on that? Is it good? Is it good? Maybe I'll
Yeah,
roll with it."
the
But
WWE evolution, man. I mean, hey, if Ronda Rousey's doing it, I'm pretty sure Dana White's still down for it. So maybe
mhm.
we will one day see that in the UFC. But I just feel there's so many badass chicks out there. Props to the male fighters for sure. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a girl, a female. But at the end of the day, there's so many talented female fighters that I feel should be showcased who should fight for the belt. So why not just have one night just to give them a little bit of praise and then we can just move on. Why not?
let's
And I
let's figure out what
guarantee
state
people would
will
buy
allow
that.
that. Let's figure out what state allows one night tournaments still. And yeah,
Well,
let's give them the old shine like the UFC used to be with like some eight
right?
man tourney. That would be pretty cool actually. Let's get some news right before we get the hell out of here. Or I guess related to 227. Ally Kenta, never afraid to tell you what he really feels. Tommy Tohold's like, Kevin Lee calls out Ally Kenta for 229 card. He wants to get out there on the New York card because that one's going to be a
Hey.
banger. And here comes Ally Kenta. Kevin Lee is a dweeb, doesn't make weight, doesn't deserve a title shot, scared to bump up to his natural weight class of 170. I'll fight him no earlier than MSG. He's a he's a
Oh
bird and I
man.
do what I want. He's a UFC kiss ass sissy bag.
Oh come
Thoughts?
on.
Thoughts?
All right. So once again, I'm probably gonna get a lot of shit for this. But I'm a fan of Kevin Lee, and I feel when he fought Barboza, that's the Kevin Lee that I remember watching. So there's this whole talk of Kevin Lee, Khabib, Kevin Lee. Um, And I feel like that would be a good fight, man. Kevin Lee and Khabib before the McGregor, turned up in the picture. But then now that Alaquinta is kind of saying that, and then Alaquinta fought Khabib. I thought he did really well, kind of holding up with that, especially striking on his feet. I don't want to say he wobbled Khabib, but Khabib doesn't have the best chin. Obviously, we know Khabib is more dominant on the ground. But anyways, I feel with Alaquinta, I just feel with both of their personalities, it would make for a good fight. I can just imagine those two kind of staring each other down at a press conference. Um, Kevin Lee's Kevin Lee, man. I don't think he's a McGregor wannabe, honestly. He has his own style. He's young. He's living in Vegas. He's living his life, traveling the world. And I would be totally down to see that fight, actually. I'm kind of happy that Al ended up posting something like that. They both have, like, kind of the same type of humor, but they're super down to just freaking bang it out. You know what I mean? So I actually like that. And MSG would be the perfect gateway. But at the end of the day, I mean, Dallas is also amazing. But then again, if he doesn't want to fight before then, but I mean, if you want the showcase more when everyone's watching, it's Madison Square Garden. So if we think of last year and everyone that was on the card, that was very big. But yeah, man, I'm a fan of both. They're both funny. Let's go. But they don't give up and they fight with heart. That's what I like. That's honestly what I like. So they're shit talkers. They don't really care what anyone else says, but they're once the, cage door closes in the octagon, they're just down to scrap it out. And, you cannot hate fighters like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good matchup. I've actually never thought about that before, but you have my money sold on that.
I respect your opinion about Kevin Lee, but when you say there's no quitting him, I believe I saw him tap to Tony Ferguson.
Well, okay.
So let's take that into account. And I think that the only hate that I see is he thinks he has elevated himself to the top 4 spot in the division, and he's not there. And he thinks that he's just like entitled to all this stuff. What I see is a man who got a title shot 1 fight ago and lost against Tony Ferguson. Came back, beat up Barbosa pretty darn good, but Poirier is above him. Maybe Nate Diaz, just a name value, is above him, which is sad to freaking say. But what I would like to see is Kevin Lee, the 165-pounder, take on Ali Kenta at MSG. I'm all for that fight, and I want to see Al try and fuck with Kevin during like the weigh-ins and the cutting weight portion, like bring him some cake or something. I don't know what to do. Do something hilarious, or bring a towel. Try and steal the UFC's towel, so when he has to use the towel, it says like fucking Al's gonna knock him out. I don't know, so something hilarious.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, and I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but then again, it's like, if I think about the fight that everybody wants still with Tony Ferguson and Khabib, obviously that would have been a banger. I feel Kevin Lee is up there secretly if we take the rankings out, surprisingly. But I just feel like, I don't know, there's just something about Kevin Lee that I like, man. Like, I don't know what it is. It literally has Alaquinta qualities to it. But I feel like, even after like the whole Conor Khabib thing, like, are we still gonna get Tony Ferguson? Like, first of all, what the hell are they doing with Tony Ferguson? I feel so bad for this dude. He trips over a cord at a freaking, mandatory media event, and he can't even get a fight. Now there's all these fights that are being, said, Conor, Khabib, and like whatever. And no one's talking about Tony Ferguson. The UFC hasn't brought him up. Like, I just feel bad. Like, he was already there.
Treatment.
God, man.
He's like, oh, you're still injured? We're moving on, brother. See ya.
Man. And they really waste no time.
There's a rumor out there that Conor hates Tony Ferguson, and he doesn't want to give him any opportunity. I've heard that many a time before, and so I think if Conor really came in after his court appearance, is like, all right, it's time to play ball. Let's do this. Let's do this one. Let's try and set up a next fight. Let's get Nate back in there and try to get him a win. Or maybe I'll give the P-head another shot. Or he's like, yo, what the hell's up with GSP? They're like, don't worry. We got GSP on hold for you, brother. We got him on hold. Don't worry. And
just staying in the background as he does gymnastics.
Yeah.
I mean.
But all respect to Kevin Lee. If we were to do a 4-person 165-pound tournament, I would have him in there. So I respect you as too big
that makes
of
me feel good, man.
Of a lightweight. But yeah.
But at the end of the day, has Conor McGregor ever called out Tony Ferguson even when he was constantly in the UFC?
No, because
I don't think He did.
Remember when he fought Nate Diaz and Connor said, if you're going to beat me, you got to bring something in here. And he says, you got to bring some attributes, some length, some reach, something like that. Because Connor, he understands himself a little bit. So he knows why he lost to Nate. That's why he wanted like T-Rex RDA and all that shit. And
No,
Eddie
exactly.
Alvarez, he was shorter and stockier too. And then when he looks at everybody, he's like, Habib's short. Tony's super long. Tony might give me troubles. I'll try and one punch Habib. We'll see.
See? No, and that's totally
130
true
million.
because and that's totally true because like you were saying, literally during that time, Nate Diaz was just like, well, I'm not trying to do your dirty work for you, like talking about Conor McGregor for because there was talks about maybe Nate should fight Tony Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
But then Nate knew like no, like maybe Conor McGregor should fight Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz is like, I'm not doing that. Like that's your job, bro. And like then at the end of the day there was just no more talk about it. So who knows? But it's interesting to see. You know, I'm interested to see the UFC and see what they do with Tony Ferguson, honestly, because at the end of the day, like that's kind of fucking shitty. Like he's trying to stay relevant, you know, with his training videos and things like that on Instagram. Like, hey, I'm here, guys, remember? And like everyone loves Tony Ferguson. Well, at least like who's around my corner, you know. So I just really hope they just treat him well and get him a fight. Like, I mean, he's already going through so much. He already has a fight, you know, that was supposed to be scheduled 4 times over, and now he's fighting someone else to get the biggest payday ever. So I mean, they have to do something good with him. Otherwise, like, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just leave him on the sideline just because he got an injury. And I understand the whole, like, well, you missed the UFC bus and now you got to wait in the back of the line. Like, I get that. But at the end of the day, like, at least mention his name. You know what I mean? And, like, ever since that happened, the UFC hasn't said anything about Tony Ferguson. And there's a lot of fans who do want that fight with Khabib. So we'll see. I mean, I think after October 6th, a lot of things will be said, you know, after MSG, after October 6th, after, you know, Las Vegas. There's a lot of fights that are happening towards the end of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to see him fight somewhere at least this year. But if they wait next year, there's something fucked up. There's a personal reason going on in that UFC office that's not getting Ferguson any praise, which is sad. It's sad.
See, this is kind of why I'm upset at Kevin Lee, because you got guys like Tony Ferguson or even above him who just beat him, who aren't even in the top four right now, which is nuts. But yeah, we'll see what goes on there. How about James Vick if he gets the win over
Oh, man, Justin
Justin
Gaethje.
Gaethje, or if Justin Gaethje wins, maybe Tony's like, hey, you know what? I got the longest running winning streak in this division. I'm the real champ. Whoever I fight, this guy, who cares? Gaethje brings in the ratings, and Vic, two lengthy guys going at it, that wouldn't be bad. That would be a travesty for Tony Ferguson, to be honest. It'd be a huge opportunity for James Vick. But Vic is
Oh
not a name,
man,
and yeah, maybe like you're saying, let's just see what happens when Conor
yeah,
and Habib fight. Tournament, man, tournament. You got three
right.
guys who could claim their champion in that division: Habib, Connor, Tony, and then Poirier just beat three champions. Nate Diaz says he's got two in a row. He's holding the Mick belt, the real
Yeah,
money belt. There's
the real money
there's
belt.
exciting shit that needs to happen,
There's a
but
lot of exciting stuff, and honestly, at the weigh-ins, I will say this right now: I think Michael Vick and or Michael Vick, Jesus Christ, Vick and Justin Gaethje, they I think they stole the show at the weigh-ins. I think that's
mm,
kind of the way, or not the weigh-ins, the press conference. I think that's the way you kind of do it. You know, they were
mhm.
definitely going back and forth. I think they were worthy. You know, Vic is on that win streak. Unfortunately, Gaethje is on the losing streak. But at the end of the day, I think that's a really good fight. But if Vic comes out winning that fight, I think that's huge for him, and I think he should be recognized a little bit more instead of just staying in the shadows. But either way, it's going to be a scrap, and I'm totally down for it. So hopefully Ferguson can kind of find his way to weasel in a little bit, maybe on the winner, to get something, because I don't think he's going to get anything else right now. So fuck it, you know. It's going to be a good fight, I think. It's going to be fun. But I thought their trash talk and everything, like the Simpsons references and things like that, that was just fun.
Heck yeah. What up, full time family? Jumping in the chat. Uh, what was I gonna say right there? Um, yeah, I love that fight. Honestly, both of these guys I think should be 165 pounders. I said how James Vick or no, Gaethje should go to 165, and people were like, no, he's barely 155. I saw him at one of those press conference things, or during the weigh-ins when he was crazy dehydrated and he couldn't even talk. He was like having trouble speaking. So when they say he doesn't cut weight, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, man. I love that weight class right there. If you guys haven't seen Justin Gaethje in person and you live near Nebraska, get your ass into the arena that night. It's one of the funnest things I've ever been to was being in Glendale. But
Yeah, I
one
think
last
it's the
things.
25th, right?
Yeah,
August
it's 3 weeks from
25th.
yesterday. We got
Okay.
3 weeks to go. 21 days, whatever the hell.
Yeah. I wish I could go to that fight, but unfortunately, yeah, I can't go to it live, sadly. But I'm definitely going to be watching.
Nice, nice. Stipe Miocic is on Twitter this morning. Sharmat Sandu, or however you pronounce his name, said Daniel Cormier just said if Brock Lesnar doesn't want to fight for any reason, then he will fight Stipe Miocic immediately. And Stipe jumps all over this. I think DC has been fishing for an opponent. All these light heavyweights, he's like, get some buzz behind your name and we'll do this, and nobody does.
What?
Stipe's
Really?
waiting in the wings. And I don't know. I thought maybe Gus pulled out via cortical injury so he could slide into an MSG slot with DC.
I'm all
Besides
what's new.
that, maybe Stipe is actually going to get this rematch. But does Daniel Cormier gamble that big on himself? Will he do this?
Um, so what did he say? He has like two more fights left. Like he's going to retire before he's 40 or at 40 or something like that. I think he has two fights left on the contract that he wants to do. Um, he just verbally agreed to do a fight, not against Derek Brunson. It's against someone. I literally just had it on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. But I
There's
mean,
Alir
DC basically,
Latifi as well out there.
oh, there was someone else. It'll probably come to me in a second. But my thing is, I personally do not mind DC fighting Brock, and I get it. Everyone's like, this is trash, it's WWE, whatever, rah, rah, rah. And like, honestly, I feel like if DC is going to retire soon, why not get the money fight for him? He's already proved this much already, especially with all the John Jones drama. But at the end of the day, it could be Brock Lesnar, and then maybe DC could just end up doing a freaking third fight with Jones just to get it out of the way, and then he retires, and then that's literally it. He can get two massive paydays, and he can possibly get a redemption within one of those fights. And he already said in the post conference after Stipe that he's getting older. He can't fight oh my god, the name will also come to me too. I'm like forgetting everyone's name all of a sudden. But basically, he can't fight the newer generation. You know what I mean? Or the Curtis Blades. There we go. He can't fight a Curtis Blades right now because he's just getting older and he understands full heartedly like he can't keep up like that anymore. So he's really picking and choosing the fights that he wants to take. And I think that's perfectly fine. When he fought Stipe, in a sense, it's like you kind of have a heart and you kind of want DC to win just given everything that he's gone through. But at the end of the day, he knows that he can't uphold with the new talent because the new talent is very talented coming into the division. So if he already stated that, why would he look backwards? Like he should just, focus on himself. He has a family. He's going to retire. Who knows what he's going to do after? But at the end of the day, just go in and make that money with Brock. Then once again, John Jones, I'm sure if he gets everything settled, do the redemption fight and be done. I'm sure he can't sleep at night with that whole John Jones thing still, given every, shitty thing John Jones has done. Like he can't get over it, I'm sure. So why not have that just be the last two and just move on? It's nice having Stipe on the sidelines, of course, like ready to go whenever, but I don't know. I'm kind of just on a personal level, he should just kind of move forward. And I know that's kind of eating up at Stipe as well, because it's kind of the same reason maybe why Daniel Cormier wants to fight John Jones too. But I don't know. I feel those are the two fights that should happen. It would be in praise of the UFC, so I don't understand why it can't happen. And then just let it be. And then he'll retire, and he'll retire a legend, like we've seen him, because he's a 2-belt champion in 2 divisions.
Hmm.
So give him what he wants. Give him what he wants.
We'll see what happens, man. It's like it's a lottery right now on who's gonna get that DC fight. That
Exactly.
is definitely for sure. I
But
don't
I
know.
do think MSG is a good place for it to happen, though. I think.
It's the UFC loves. I don't know what it is, if it's Endeavor or it's just the New York deal, but it seems like that November card is like the Super Bowl event. They've wanted it
Yeah.
to be International Fight Week. It's just getting messed up every single year, so it's kind of become New York, and so they're gonna go hard. And I don't know what's up with Nate. Nate wanted on the same card as Connor. I'm not exactly sure, but he was freaking pissed. Diaz, if it's not DC on there, I don't see why a Diaz name doesn't headline that card. But I also see disappointment with that being a main event as well. So we'll see what the hell happens over there at MSG. I got just one more note to get to before we get the heck out of here. And Brave Combat Federation, new promotion over there in kind of the Middle Eastern area, and we're missing the days of ACB and their international takeover, free fights on Facebook and Fight TV and all that good shit. But Brave is here, and apparently they're having a global expansion press conference for 2018 on August 8th. I don't know
Oh,
what they're up
wow.
to, but I believe there's crazy, probably foreign oil money behind this promotion here, so expect good things in the future. If you watch any sort of crazy Middle Eastern stuff, then I guess they're expanding though. Who knows where they're going? We'll see. Anything else you want to get to, Esha, before we get out of here?
Honestly, man, not really. I'm still just taking it in. I'm in LA. I'm about to fly home tomorrow back to the Bay Area and just get ready for some more fights. I'm going to be heading to the next place is Dallas, so I'll be at Dallas September 8th, Vegas October 6th, maybe MSG, we'll see, but just living the life. I'm just taking it all in, man. I'm still kind of shocked from last night's events. But this has been a joy. It's my first time on your show. Hopefully, it's not the last. It's been very fun. I don't drink coffee, but this is definitely my coffee right now. So this is pretty awesome. But
Nice.
yeah, man, I just enjoyed my time here and, just taking it all in.
Heck yeah.
227's over. Now we just got to take it and see where DJ goes, see where Cody goes, see what, TJ does. It's crazy. Last night was utterly insane. It's kind of like how it happened in MSG. Every belt changed at MSG last year. So this is kind of that same feeling. So I definitely need a day to get it together and recope.
Nice. Well, I'm so glad you could join us, Isha. And I love having boots on the ground. I like that type of feeling when it comes to the recaps. So for one
Yeah.
of these future events that you're at, we'll definitely have you back. And if you guys like her, give her a follow. Isha knows MMA underscore on Twitter. Check out her articles and blog, and you can find her at mma-today.com.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
Thank all you sickos for coming in here to the chat. I need you to let me know what's next for TJ, what's next for Henry Cejudo in the comment section down below. Do you want to see that super fight? You guys let me know. And until next time, back to you sickos. We're out of here. Peace.
Hey,